The unseen pattern. The industrial moon of Epsilon Eridani hummed with the mechanical precision that defined the Krillian Empire. Towering spires of crystallized energy pierced the artificial atmosphere, their surfaces reflecting the cold light of processing facilities that never slept. Within these monuments to order and efficiency, humanity had found itself trapped for 3 generations, reduced to mere components in a vast galactic machine. Elena Chen adjusted the thermal regulators on her recycling suit, her movements deliberately clumsy to match the expected performance metrics of a Level 3 processor. The Krillians, in their infinite wisdom, had categorized humans based on their perceived limitations, never realizing that behind every stumbling worker lay a mind capable of extraordinary adaptability. Elena's true role as a systems analyst remained buried beneath layers of fabricated incompetence, a secret she had guarded for 7 years. The Krillians themselves were beings of pure logic and crystalline beauty. Their bodies resembled living geometric sculptures, faces composed of perfectly symmetrical planes that shifted color with their emotional states, though they claimed to have transcended such primitive responses. They moved through their empire with mathematical precision, every action calculated, every decision based on predictable algorithms that had served them for millennia. Today, Elena noticed something different in the power distribution pattern scrolling across her hidden scanner. The device, no larger than a fingernail, was embedded in her work glove, disguised as a simple efficiency monitor. Numbers cascaded before her eyes, revealing the heartbeat of the facility's energy network. There, buried in teraflops of data, she found it, a recursive loop in the distribution algorithm, a mathematical hiccup that the Krillians' perfect systems had somehow overlooked. Her discovery triggered memories of her grandmother's stories about Earth, about jazz musicians who found beauty in improvisation, about ancient warriors who turned their enemies' strength against them. The Krillians had conquered hundreds of worlds through superior technology and ruthless efficiency, but they had never encountered a species that thrived on chaos, that found strength in unpredictability. The maintenance sector where Elena worked buzzed with activity as the shift change approached. She made her way to subsection 7G, a forgotten corner of the facility where faulty equipment was stored for recycling. It was here that the Resistance held their meetings, hidden from the Krillians' all-seeing sensors by the very junk they were tasked with processing. Marcus Okoye was already there, his massive frame hunched over a makeshift communication array cobbled together from discarded Krillian technology. Beside him, Dr. Sarah Nakamura worked on chemical formulations that could disrupt the Krillians' bioneural networks. They looked up as Elena approached, hope flickering in their eyes. "I found something," Elena whispered, her voice barely audible over the ambient hum of machinery. She shared her discovery, watching as understanding dawned on their faces. The Krillians' greatest strength, their absolute reliance on patterns and predictability, could become their greatest weakness. They'll respond to any disruption with a standard containment protocol, Dr. Nakamura mused, her fingers tracing equations in the air. If we can create a cascade of small, seemingly random failures, they'll exhaust their resources trying to contain chaos that has no pattern. Marcus finished, a rare smile breaking across his weathered face. Elena nodded, pulling up holographic displays from her hidden scanner. "Operation Ripple," she announced. "We don't fight their order with force. We introduce entropy into their perfect system. Their own rigidity will do the rest." The plan was elegantly simple, relying on humanity's greatest evolutionary advantage, the ability to think outside established patterns. While the Krillians had built their empire on the foundation of predictable responses and logical progression, humans had survived by adapting, improvising, and finding solutions in the spaces between rules. Over the following weeks, Elena and her team recruited others. James Torres, a former physics professor now assigned to waste management, contributed his understanding of cascade dynamics. Yuki Tanaka, whose artistic soul had been hidden beneath the role of the sanitation worker, brought insights about pattern disruption from her knowledge of abstract art. Even old Benjamin Fisher, who had spent 40 years pretending to be a simple-minded laborer, revealed his expertise in pre-invasion Earth's chaos mathematics. Each recruit was carefully vetted, their reliability tested through subtle challenges that no Krillian overseer would recognize. The resistance grew like a neural network, each node connected yet independent, capable of functioning, even if others were discovered and eliminated. Elena's role as the architect of their rebellion meant she had to maintain her cover more carefully than ever. She continued her daily routines, processing recyclable materials with mechanical precision, while her mind raced through probability calculations and system vulnerabilities. The Krillians, in their arrogance, never suspected that the humans they had classified as barely sentient were capable of such complex planning. The first test came 3 months after Elena's discovery, a minor disruption in the waste processing unit, a valve that opened 2 seconds early, a temperature regulator that fluctuated by half a degree. To human observers, these seemed like random equipment failures. To the Krillians, they were anomalies that demanded immediate correction. Elena watched through her scanner as the Krillian response unfolded exactly as predicted. Maintenance crews were dispatched, diagnostic protocols initiated, and resources diverted from other systems to address the critical failures. The cost of fixing these minor issues far exceeded any damage they might have caused, but the Krillians couldn't help themselves. Their programming demanded perfect order. "It's working," Marcus reported during their next meeting. Sector 12 reported similar disruptions. The Krillians are starting to allocate reserve power to diagnostic systems. Dr. Nakamura added her observations. Their bio-neural networks are showing stress patterns. They're not equipped to handle true randomness. Every unexpected event creates exponential processing demands as they try to find patterns that don't exist. Elena felt a mixture of excitement and trepidation. They were playing with forces beyond their full understanding, introducing chaos into a system built on absolute order. The Krillians had ruled for thousands of years, their empire spanning dozens of star systems. Could humanity's knack for creative disorder really bring down such a monolithic power? As she returned to her workstation, Elena caught sight of Overseer Krek 7, the facility's administrator. The Krillian's crystalline form flickered with confused patterns of color, a sight no human had witnessed before. For the first time in recorded history, a Krillian appeared uncertain. The game had begun, and humanity's greatest strength, their ability to find opportunity in chaos, was about to be tested against the mathematical might of the galaxy's most powerful empire. Elena touched the scanner in her glove, feeling the pulse of data that connected her to thousands of other human workers across Krillian space. The revolution wouldn't come through force of arms or superior technology. It would arrive in the spaces between order and chaos, in the unpredictable patterns that only human minds could navigate. The Krillians had made one fatal error in their conquest of Earth. They had assumed that a species capable of creating jazz, abstract art, and soap operas could be reduced to mere cogs in their perfect machine. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The cascade effect. The Krillian Empire's response to the growing anomalies followed a pattern that Elena had anticipated, but still found fascinating to observe. As disruptions spread across multiple sectors, the crystalline being's behavior became increasingly erratic, a term that would have been considered impossible just months ago. Their perfect algorithms, designed to handle any conceivable threat, were crumbling in the face of true randomness. Elena stood before a holographic display in the hidden resistance hub, watching data streams that told the story of an empire in confusion. Red indicators bloomed across the three-dimensional map like flowers in a time-lapse video, each one representing a system experiencing inexplicable failures. Waste Processing Unit 7 is reporting a recursive feedback loop, James Torres announced, his eyes gleaming with the satisfaction of seeing his theoretical models play out in reality. The Krillians' attempt to restore order is actually amplifying the chaos. Dr. Nakamura nodded from her workstation. Their bio-neural networks are overclocking. They're trying to process every anomaly simultaneously, looking for an underlying pattern. They can't accept that there isn't one. The beauty of Operation Ripple lay in its simplicity. Human workers across the empire were introducing minor variations into their daily routines. Nothing overtly rebellious, nothing that violated direct orders. A cleaning drone programmed to follow a slightly different path. A temperature setting adjusted by an insignificant fraction. A data packet routed through an alternate pathway. Each action was meaningless in isolation, but together they created a symphony of disorder that the Krillians' rigid minds couldn't comprehend. Elena watched as Overseer Krek 7 materialized in the facility's central command hub, its crystalline form now permanently flickering between color patterns that indicated what humans might recognize as panic. The being's perfectly modulated voice, speaking through the facility's communication system, betrayed an edge of something unprecedented: doubt. All units will implement Protocol Absolute Zero, Krek 7 commanded. Complete system reset. Purge all anomalous data patterns. Restore baseline operational parameters. Marcus looked at Elena, eyebrows raised. They're going to try a hard reset of the entire facility. Exactly what we hoped for, Elena replied, her fingers dancing across her hidden controls. James, are you ready? The physicist grinned. Cascade subroutine is primed. The moment they initiate the reset, every backup system will activate simultaneously. The Krillians' Protocol Absolute Zero was their ultimate failsafe, designed to restore order by temporarily shutting down all systems and restarting from protected baseline configurations. It had never failed, because it had never been tested against an enemy that understood how to weaponize chaos itself. As the reset began, Elena felt the facility shudder. Lights dimmed, the constant hum of machinery faded, and for a moment, perfect silence descended. Then, as systems began to reinitialize, the trap was sprung. Every backup system, every redundant circuit, every emergency protocol activated at once. The Krillians had built their infrastructure with multiple failsafes, never imagining a scenario where all of them would engage simultaneously. Power surged through pathways designed for carefully regulated flow. Data streams collided as multiple restoration protocols tried to assert dominance. The result was technological pandemonium. Elena watched through her scanner as the facility's central core began to oscillate wildly between states. Lighting systems strobed frantically. Environmental controls swung between extremes. The Krillians' own perfection had become their undoing. Their systems were too interconnected, too dependent on synchronized operation. Across the Empire, similar scenes were unfolding. The Resistance had timed their actions perfectly, creating a synchronized moment of maximum entropy. Centuries of human observation had revealed the critical weakness in Krillian psychology. They couldn't adapt to true chaos because they couldn't conceive of its existence. Neural network stress is approaching critical levels, Dr. Nakamura reported. The Krillians are literally thinking themselves into paralysis. Through the chaos, Elena noticed something remarkable happening among the human workers. As Krillian oversight crumbled, people began revealing their true capabilities. Engineers who had pretended to barely understand basic mechanics were now openly reconfiguring systems. Scientists who had played dumb for decades were implementing solutions the Krillians had never imagined possible. The transformation was breathtaking. Humans moved through the chaotic facility with purpose and confidence, their minds thriving in the disorder that paralyzed their former masters. They didn't need rigid protocols or perfect algorithms. They had intuition, creativity, and the ability to find patterns in chaos itself. Yuki Tanaka had reprogrammed an entire section of manufacturing drones, turning them into an impromptu art installation that painted abstract patterns across the facility walls. The visual noise further confused the Krillian sensor systems, adding another layer to the calculated mayhem. Old Benjamin Fisher stood at a primary control node, his weathered hands moving with surprising grace across interfaces he had supposedly been too primitive to understand. 60 years I've waited for this moment, he said to Elena as she approached. 60 years of playing dumb while memorizing every circuit, every pathway, every vulnerability. The cascade effect was now unstoppable. As Krillian administrators across the Empire tried to contain the chaos, their very efforts amplified it. Their rigid command structure, once a source of strength, became a liability as contradictory orders created feedback loops of confusion. Elena received reports from other facilities, other worlds. The pattern was the same everywhere. Humans revealing their hidden talents, Krillians paralyzed by indecision, and systems collapsing under the weight of their own complexity. Overseer Krek 7 appeared one final time on the main display, its crystalline form barely maintaining cohesion. The colors that played across its surface had shifted to patterns no human had ever seen, perhaps the Krillian equivalent of complete systemic breakdown. "This is impossible," the being managed to transmit. "Order cannot yield to chaos. Logic cannot bow to randomness. We are. The transmission cut off as Krek 7's form dissipated, its consciousness unable to process the reality of its empire's downfall. Around the facility, other Krillians were experiencing similar breakdowns, their minds literally unable to exist in a universe where their fundamental assumptions had been shattered. Elena stood in what had once been the central command hub, now reclaimed by humanity. The facility still functioned, but under human control, messy, imperfect, adaptable human control. Through the viewports, she could see the star field of Epsilon Eridani, no longer a symbol of imprisonment, but of possibility. "What happens now?" Marcus asked, joining her at the viewport. "Now we rebuild," Elena replied. "Not their order, but our chaos, a civilization that bends without breaking, that finds strength in diversity and adaptability." Dr. Nakamura added her thoughts. "The Krillians' technology is still here. Their knowledge, their resources, but we'll use them differently, creatively, chaotically, humanly." Across the galaxy, the Krillian Empire, which had stood for millennia on the foundations of perfect order and logical precision, crumbled in a matter of days, not through military might or technological superiority, but through humanity's greatest gift, the ability to thrive in the spaces between order and chaos. The liberation spread like wildfire. Human slaves became free citizens, hidden talents emerged into the light, and a new paradigm began to take shape. The galaxy would never be the same. Elena Chen, who had started as a systems analyst pretending to be a recycling processor, stood at the dawn of a new era. The Krillians had tried to reduce humanity to mere components in their perfect machine. Instead, they had inadvertently created the perfect conditions for humanity's greatest strength to emerge. The empire fell not with explosive warfare or dramatic conquest, but with the gentle introduction of entropy into a system too rigid to adapt. One human's recognition of a pattern within the patterns, a flaw within the flawless, had set in motion the liberation of billions. As Elena watched ships departing for Earth, the homeworld many had never seen, she reflected on the irony. The Krillians had been defeated by the very qualities they had dismissed as primitive: intuition, creativity, and the distinctly human ability to find opportunity in chaos. The stars shone differently now, no longer cold and distant, but full of possibility. Humanity had proven once again that their greatest strength lay not in perfection, but in their perfect imperfection. The revolution born from chaos had set them free, and the galaxy would learn what humans had always known: that true strength comes not from rigid order, but from the ability to dance in the spaces between.